The checkout aisle smelled of stale cleaner and desperation. A mountain of a man named Rex Thorne snatched a cereal box from a young boy's reach, dangling it over his terrified mother, Clara. "Look at this junk," Rex boomed, his voice dripping with contempt. "Pathetic." Clara stood frozen, her son Leo shrinking behind her. The other shoppers just stared at their feet, pretending not to see. But in the next aisle, a man with a shaved head and eyes like cold steel had seen everything. Then he started to move. Before I show you exactly what happened, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Now let's get into it. The story begins under the flickering, unforgiving lights of a late-night grocery run. The cheap LED tubes overhead hummed a weary, buzzing tune, casting a harsh, sterile light that seemed to bleach all the color from the world. One of them flickered erratically, a frantic strobe effect over the aisle filled with brightly colored, low-budget snack foods. The floor was a patchwork of scuffed white and gray vinyl tiles, crisscrossed with the dark tracks of countless shopping carts. This was the landscape of Clara's life at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, a battleground of budgets and exhaustion. At 32, she felt 52, the weight of being the sole provider for her 7-year-old son, Leo, etched into the fine lines around her eyes. Leo, oblivious to her stress, clutched a box of Galaxy Crunchers to his small chest like it was a holy relic. It was a small victory in a long week, a splash of sugary joy in a sea of bills and responsibilities. Her heart sank when she saw him. Rex Thorne was leaning against the self-checkout station, a human roadblock built of cheap beer and pure malice. He was huge, with a barrel chest straining the fabric of a faded band t-shirt, and thick arms covered in garish, poorly rendered flame tattoos. He was a local fixture, a bully who thrived on the small-town fear he cultivated. He was the kind of man who'd shove you in a bar for looking at him wrong, or cut in line and dare anyone to say a word. No one ever did. Clara tried to become invisible, keeping her head down, her focus locked on the scanner's red beam. But a predator always spots the weakest prey. Well, Rex's voice echoed, a gravelly boom that made Leo flinch. "If it isn't my favorite welfare queen. What's on the menu tonight, huh? Ramen and frozen pizza?" A hot flush of shame crawled up Clara's neck. "Please, Rex," she whispered, not making eye contact. "Just leave us alone." "Leave you alone?" He pushed himself off the counter, taking a deliberate step closer, invading her space. His sheer size was suffocating. "Where's the fun in that? Look at you, struggling to even pay for your kids' snacks." He gestured at her small pile of groceries, bread, milk, eggs, pasta. Pathetic. Leo pressed himself against her leg, his small hand gripping her jeans. "Mom," he whispered, his voice trembling. That was the spark. Before Clara could even formulate a response, Rex's massive hand shot out and snatched the Galaxy Crunchers from Leo's grasp. He held the box between a thick thumb and forefinger, pinching the corner until the cardboard began to audibly creak and deform. This garbage," he sneered, dangling it just out of Clara's reach. "Kid doesn't need this junk. Probably can't even afford it. Give that back." The words tore from Clara's throat, raw with a mother's protective fury. Rex's cruel smirk widened. "Or what? You gonna fight me for it?" He loomed over her, his shadow swallowing her completely. The teenage cashier looked on, wide-eyed and terrified, utterly useless. Other customers suddenly found the contents of their carts fascinating. But one man hadn't looked away. In the next aisle, near the imported goods section, Jason Statham had been calmly inspecting a jar of olives. He wore a simple dark Henley shirt and worn cargo pants, looking like any other tradesman after a long day. He wasn't looking for trouble, but he had a core belief. Trouble should never be allowed to win, especially not against a mother and her child. He'd seen the whole exchange, his gaze missing nothing. He saw the bully's pleasure, the mother's fear, and the boy's crushing disappointment. He placed the jar of olives back on the shelf with quiet precision and stepped out from behind the aisle. He moved with a silent, economic grace that belied his solid build. The air itself seemed to shift as he approached. "Put it back," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the store's hum like a razor. It was low, calm, and carried an unmistakable weight of authority. Rex turned, surprised by the interruption. He squinted at the bald-headed stranger, then let out a bark of derisive laughter. "What's this, Grandpa? Trying to play hero?" Statham's gaze was flat, unwavering, like chips of granite. I said, "Put it back." The absolute lack of fear unsettled Rex. He tried to mask it with more bravado, puffing out his chest. "You think you scare me? You don't know who I am." "I don't care who you are," Statham replied, his voice still perfectly level. "You're done bothering her." The tension was now a physical thing in the air. Phones, previously hidden, slowly began to emerge. People were no longer pretending not to watch. "Big mistake, old man," Rex snarled. He shoved Clara's cart aside with a crash and lunged. Not to punch, but to intimidate, to use his bulk to shove the old man into submission. He might as well have tried to shove a brick wall. Statham didn't move an inch. As Rex's meaty hand came forward, Statham's own hands moved in a blur. He didn't block, he intercepted. He caught Rex's wrist, his fingers finding pressure points with practiced accuracy. A sharp, brutal twist followed. A cry of agony ripped from Rex's throat as his knees buckled, the wristlock forcing him into a painful, humiliating kneeling position. The box of Galaxy Crunchers tumbled to the floor. "Lesson number 1, Statham said calmly, his grip like a vice. "You've got the size of a truck, but the control of a scared puppy." He released the wrist with a shove, sending Rex stumbling backward. The bully, roaring with rage and embarrassment, charged again, swinging a wild haymaker. Statham sidestepped with fluid ease, and a precisely placed palm strike to Rex's ribs sent him crashing into the checkout counter. The machine rattled, beeping in protest. Gasping for air, his pride shattered, Rex glared at the calm man standing before him. Humiliated in front of an audience now openly recording him, he scrambled to his feet. He pointed a trembling finger. "This ain't over," he wheezed. Then, he turned and stormed out of the store, the automatic doors sliding shut behind his shameful retreat. The moment the automatic doors hissed shut behind Rex Thorne, the spell of silence broke. A collective exhale swept through the checkout area, followed by a ripple of excited, nervous whispers. The teenage cashier fumbled with his phone, his hands shaking. Clara, clutching Leo close, could only stare at the man who had appeared from nowhere. Her heart was a frantic drum against her ribs, a chaotic rhythm of fear and overwhelming gratitude. The man, meanwhile, simply bent down, picked up the slightly dented box of Galaxy Crunchers, and handed it to Leo. "Don't ever let anyone take what's yours," he said, his stern expression softening for just a moment as he looked at the boy. Leo clutched the box, his eyes wide with a hero worship that transcended words. "Thank you," Clara breathed, her voice trembling. The man gave a curt nod, then calmly retrieved his own shopping basket from the next aisle, as if he'd just finished a casual conversation. But he knew, with a certainty forged in 100 other forgotten conflicts, that this was far from over. Men like Rex didn't run on logic, they ran on ego. And a shattered ego was the most dangerous fuel of all. Outside, in the sprawling, poorly lit parking lot, that fuel was igniting. Rex stumbled to his beat-up pickup truck, each breath a painful reminder of the strike to his ribs. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the searing humiliation. He saw his reflection in the driver's side window, a red-faced, defeated man, and slammed his fist against the hood with a guttural roar that echoed into the night. The dent his fist left in the metal did little to soothe the one in his pride. "That old bastard," he growled, pacing back and forth beside his truck like a caged animal. The videos were probably already online. The whispers would start tomorrow. Rex Thorne, the town tough guy, put on his knees by some bald old man over a box of cereal. He thinks he can embarrass me? In front of a crowd? He yanked his phone from his pocket, his thumb jabbing at the screen. He dialed a number. "Get the boys," he barked into the phone, his voice a venomous rasp. "All of them. Meet me at the grocery store in 20. We're going to teach some respect tonight." Back inside, the atmosphere had shifted again. The initial relief was curdling into a new, more potent anxiety. Clara, still standing by the checkout, approached the stranger, her son clinging to her hand. "He's not going to stop," she said, her voice urgent and low. "You saw his face. He'll come back. A man like that, he can't let this go." Statham was calmly placing his items on the conveyor belt. Olives, a loaf of rustic bread, a bottle of mineral water. He glanced toward the large glass windows at the front of the store, his eyes scanning the dark parking lot as if he could already see the gathering storm. "Let him," he said, his voice even. "Bullies always come back. It's how they remind themselves they're still relevant." The young cashier, emboldened by Rex's absence, chimed in. "Mister, maybe you should leave through the back. He's dangerous. He's got friends." Statham shook his head, a small, resolute movement. "I don't run," he stated simply. It wasn't a boast, it was a fact. He gestured subtly with his chin toward Clara. "Not when people like her need to know they're safe." Clara felt a fresh wave of tears prick her eyes. In a world that had so often made her feel invisible and powerless, this stranger's quiet solidarity was a shield she'd forgotten existed. Leo, emboldened by the hero who had returned his cereal, tugged on Statham's cargo pants. He stared up at the man's stoic face with the unblinking curiosity of a child. "Are you a superhero?" he asked, his voice full of genuine wonder. For the first time, a flicker of something other than calm control crossed the man's features. He knelt slightly, bringing himself closer to the boy's level. The hardness in his eyes softened into something paternal, almost gentle. "No," he said, his voice softer than Clara had heard it yet. "But I don't let bad men win." The 20 minutes that followed were the longest of Clara's life. The store manager, a nervous man in a cheap tie, locked the main doors, trapping the few remaining customers and staff inside. The air was thick with a shared dread. Every pair of headlights that swept across the parking lot caused a collective jump. Then they heard it, a low rumble at first, growing into the aggressive roar of multiple engines. 3 sets of headlights pierced the darkness, swinging into the lot and screeching to a halt in a half-circle formation, their beams cutting directly toward the store's entrance. The storm had arrived. The 3 pickup trucks, engines growling like angry beasts, formed a crude semicircle facing the grocery store's entrance. Their high beams sliced through the darkness, turning the front walkway into a stark, interrogative stage. Doors were thrown open, and 7 men spilled out into the night. Rex Thorne was at their head, his face a twisted mask of rage. Flanking him were his reinforcements, a motley crew of local thugs, their bodies broad and their expressions eager for violence. One, a lanky man with shifty eyes, casually swung a heavy-duty chain. Another, built like a refrigerator, cracked his knuckles while his partner leaned against a truck, a wooden baseball bat resting on his shoulder. They were a pack of hyenas, drawn by the scent of their leader's wounded pride. Inside the store, the remaining shoppers and staff pressed against the glass, their faces pale under the fluorescent lights. Someone was already live-streaming the scene on their phone. "He's crazy to face all of them alone," a woman whispered. The manager wrung his hands. "The police are on their way," he stammered, though his voice lacked any real conviction. Statham paid them no mind. He gave Clara a single, reassuring look. "Stay here. Lock the doors behind me." Without another word, he turned and strode towards the entrance. The automatic doors slid open with a soft hiss, and he stepped out onto the concrete stage, a lone figure against the glare of the headlights. He didn't flinch or squint. He just stood there, his hands loose at his sides, a picture of absolute calm in the heart of a brewing hurricane. "Statham," Rex's voice, now bolstered by his cronies, boomed across the parking lot. He had obviously gotten his name from someone inside. "Get out here. Let's see how tough you are now." Statham's eyes, cold and focused, locked onto Rex. "You're making another mistake," he said, his voice carrying effortlessly over the idling engines. Rex sneered, gesturing to his gang. "The mistake was you touching me. Tonight, I choked the life out of you." He then pointed a thick finger toward the store's window, where Clara and Leo were visible. "Then I'll deal with the woman and her brat." A collective gasp came from the onlookers inside. That was the line. Statham's calm demeanor didn't break, but it shifted, hardening into something infinitely more dangerous. A storm began to brew behind his eyes. "You put your hands on them again," he said, his voice dropping low and steady, each word a promissory note of violence. "And you won't be walking out of here." That was the only warning. Rex roared and charged. The first to engage was the man with the chain, swinging it in a whistling arc aimed at Statham's head. In a movement almost too fast to follow, Statham sidestepped, his hand shooting up to catch the chain mid-swing. With a powerful yank, he pulled the thug off balance, turning his own momentum against him. As the man stumbled forward, Statham's elbow crashed into his jaw with a sickening crack. He crumpled to the pavement, unconscious before he hit the ground. The bat wielder rushed in next, swinging for the fences. Statham pivoted on the ball of his foot, letting the bat slice through the empty air where he'd just been. He swept his leg out in a low, sharp arc, kicking the man's supporting ankle from under him. He went down hard, the bat clattering uselessly away. Two more attacked at once, tried to overwhelm him from both sides. It was a foolish mistake. Statham flowed between them like water, a blur of controlled motion. He deflected a punch from one, using the man's arm to spin him directly into the path of his partner. The two collided in a heap of tangled limbs and pain groans. The parking lot had erupted into a whirlwind of brutal, efficient action. Phones flashed from behind the glass, recording every devastatingly precise movement. The crowd inside cheered with a mix of shock and exhilaration. Rex, seeing his men dismantled with such terrifying ease, charged again, his massive fists swinging like sledgehammers. This time, Statham met him head-on. He blocked the first punch, the impact echoing like a slab of meat hitting a wall. He parried the second, then drove his knee hard into Rex's gut. The big man doubled over, all the air rushing out of him in a desperate wheeze. "You pick on women," Statham said, his voice calm but sharp, grabbing Rex by the collar of his shirt. "You pick on children." He pivoted, using Rex's own weight to amplify his strength. Because they can't fight back. With a final, powerful heave, he hurled Rex across the hood of his own truck. The metal dented with a loud groan under the impact. Rex sprawled there, helpless and broken, the fight completely knocked out of him. His remaining men froze, staring at their defeated leader. The feral confidence had vanished from their eyes, replaced by raw fear. None of them dared to take another step forward. The parking lot fell silent, the only sounds the labored breathing of the fallen and the distant wail of approaching sirens. Statham stood tall, a solitary pillar of authority amid the wreckage. The wail of sirens grew from a distant cry to a piercing scream, culminating in a wash of flashing red and blue lights that painted the chaotic parking lot in strobing colors of authority. Two police cruisers skidded to a stop, and officers emerged, weapons drawn, shouting commands into the tense silence. The scene they found was one of stark, undeniable clarity. 7 men groaning on the pavement or slumped against their trucks, and one man standing calmly in the middle of it all, not a single drop of sweat on his brow. Rex Thorne, pushing himself up from the dented hood of his truck, saw his chance. His body ached, his ego was incinerated, but the bully's instinct to lie and manipulate was still intact. "He attacked us," Rex yelled, pointing a trembling finger at Statham. "Unprovoked. We were just talking, and this psycho went crazy on all of us." For a moment, the officers were on guard, their expressions uncertain as they tried to piece together the narrative. But Rex had forgotten about the audience. He had forgotten that courage, once sparked, can be contagious. The locked doors of the grocery store slid open. It wasn't Clara who came out first, but the nervous store manager, his cheap tie askew, holding his phone out like a shield. "That's a lie," he said, his voice shaking but firm. "I saw the whole thing. We all did." He was the first drop in what was about to become a flood. One by one, the other customers and staff filed out, no longer silent bystanders. A young woman stepped forward. That man, Rex, he was harassing a mother and her little boy inside. He assaulted her. "This gentleman," she said, nodding at Statham, stepped in to defend them. Another man chimed in, his phone already displaying a video. "About all right here, officer." From the moment Rex started on them in the checkout aisle. "And I got his friends pulling up with bats and chains. Unprovoked? Give me a break." A chorus of agreement rose from the small crowd. Phones were offered up as evidence, each one holding a piece of the truth, their combined testimony forming an unbreakable wall against Rex's lies. The officers exchanged a look, their professional suspicion melting away in the face of overwhelming, crowdsourced evidence. One officer holstered his weapon and approached the man holding out his phone. The other walked over to Rex, his expression now hard and uncompromising. "Put your hands behind your back," the officer commanded. Rex's face contorted with disbelief, then rage, then finally the pathetic whimper of a bully who has run out of power. As the cold steel of handcuffs clicked around his wrists, he saw Statham standing near the store entrance. Their eyes met for a final time. In Statham's gaze, there was no triumph, no anger, not even satisfaction. There was only a quiet, profound indifference. Rex was beneath his contempt. That was the final, most devastating lesson. He wasn't a rival to be defeated. He was a nuisance to be dealt with. His reign of petty terror, built on the silence of the intimidated, had been dismantled not just by one man's fists, but by the voices he had awakened. As the police rounded up the rest of the groaning thugs, Statham turned his attention away from the spectacle. He found Clara standing with Leo, who was still holding his Galaxy Crunchers, now a symbol of a battle won. Clara's eyes were filled with a depth of gratitude that words couldn't possibly express. "How can I ever?" she started, her voice thick with emotion. He cut her off with a small, almost imperceptible shake of his head. "You don't have to," he said. "Just take care of your boy. That's all that matters." He looked down at Leo and gave him a slight, genuine smile. "Stay strong, little man." He gave a final nod to the store manager, who was now giving a very animated statement to an officer. Then, as news vans began to pull into the far end of the parking lot, drawn by the police scanner, Statham simply turned. He walked past the commotion, past the flashing lights, and melted into the shadows of the parking lot. He didn't want thanks or recognition. The job was done. Justice, in its rawest, most immediate form, had been served. He disappeared into the night, leaving behind a dented truck, a defeated bully, and a small town that was suddenly a little bit braver. This story isn't just about a fight in a parking lot. It's a powerful reminder that true strength isn't found in a bully's fists, but in the quiet courage of one person willing to stand up. That single act can shatter the illusion of fear, awakening the bravery in everyone else around them, and proving that a united community is the ultimate shield against darkness. Have you ever witnessed bullying, big or small, and wish someone would step in, or wish you had the courage to do it yourself? What would you have thought if you were shopping in that store, watching the whole thing unfold from the beginning? Do you think true strength is about physical power and the ability to win a fight, or is it about having the moral conviction to protect those who can't protect themselves? If this story reminded you of the incredible power of standing up for what's right, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about everyday heroes who choose not to look away. Share this with someone who you know believes in courage and doing the right thing. We read and appreciate every single one of your comments, so let us know your thoughts below. More incredible stories about justice being served and bullies getting what they deserve are waiting for you on your screen right now. Click on one of those to watch next, and we'll see you in the next video with another story you absolutely will not want to miss.